welcome to a very special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have a couple of guests that will be on the show that have a variety of knowledge when it comes down to sports. Right now, I'm currently joined by Mr. Keith Bennett, and Keith Bennett has coached basketball, and he has a plethora of knowledge when it comes down to basketball. And one of the things that I used to do with Keith was to go back to Pistons back when they had the Kelly Tribuca days, to the Bob Lanier days, to the Dave Bing days, to looking in terms of say at what's the guy's name that used to wave the terrible towel that he used to have back before Pittsburgh had it. He wound up going to Boston.
ML Carr.
ML Carr,
Yes.
And that was the thing, the ML Carr. Every time you turn around, you see ML Carr doing,
Yes.
Waving flag, and that kind of thing.
Correct.
But that's the key thing that we want to make certain of, that most of the people, when we talk about basketball, when we talk about football, that everybody really just has that knowledge of trying to make certain that people understand basketball, football, those sports are very, very important when it comes down to Detroit. And the other thing that I wanted to do too today was that I wanted to bring on another person who is a very renowned sports analyst. I want to say a person that also has a plethora of knowledge when it comes down to sports,
It's the genius.
celebrities, coaches, entertainers, the whole gamut when it comes down to sports. But that is the person that, just as Keith is considered to be, a lot of people look at him and call him the OG.
He is the OG.
But as Keith just anointed our other guest, Mr. Leland Stein, as being the expert, so we are also joined by Mr. Leland Stein, the expert that you've been
I bow
anointed.
down to Mr. Stein.
There are probably a lot of people that probably bow down to Mr. Stein. He's not Leland, he's
OG.
Mr. Stein. So that's just it.
He's
But
older than him. He's the OG.
and then when you look at Mr. Stein over here, he's got the Final Four in New Orleans, on his baseball cap. But we're joined by two very, very profound, very seasoned individuals who have a lot of sports knowledge. And that is, again, Mr. Keith Bennett and Mr. Leland Stein. Gentlemen, thank you. Welcome to
Good
Truth
morning.
to Power today.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning.
But, before we get started, I know, Leland, you've been doing a lot of traveling lately. So I'm going to give you an opportunity first to kind of your travels. Where have you been? What have you been doing, since the last time we had you on the show?
Well, I've slowed down tremendously. I don't do like Michigan State, Michigan every weekend, game stuff. Fortunately, I might be grandfathered in a little bit, and I still get to do the Super Bowls and Final Fours and some other things if I push them hard enough. But so that's kind of what I'm doing now. You got to admit the Super Bowl was spectacular. Anytime it's in New Orleans, it's spectacular, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, New Orleans is, I'm a culture, a foodie.
Okay.
So,
You was putting it on.
oh yeah, no more party. Party is over. Just ate. It's about 5 pounds.
Just all of the food that you can
yeah,
go
a lot
on.
of food. Lot of
Okay.
food. So that's and the game, of course, was great.
Well, you've covered a lot of Final Fours.
Right.
Which Final Four really stands out in all of the years that you've been covering sports? I mean, what cities have you been to that really laid it out, put the red carpet out for all of the fans to come there and witness the Final Four?
I think this year's Final Four where the heck were we? I can't even remember where we were. That's terrible, isn't it?
When you flying so much, that's what I'm saying.
Where the hell? San Antonio. That's where we
Yeah.
Okay.
And San Antonio is an excellent venue for things like the Final Four.
What made San Antonio so great of a venue? to have
It's small and walkable.
that? Okay.
And what San Antonio did is the blueprint for what Detroit has done. San Antonio did it first. We tried to build like a walkable sports entertainment environment. So they got a little dinky river. This little thing, we can call it a creek.
Because they call it the river walk. You think when you hear about it, it's huge, but it's not.
You can step over there and walk across your ankles, man. But they were smart enough to take that little creek and dam it up, and then they built a lot of hotels and restaurants on it, and they built the arena right behind the Alamo Dome, and so they created this walkable downtown environment thing. Then Indiana, which was the most podunk town I'd ever seen, like 30 years ago, saw what San Antonio was doing, and they mirrored it.
Because Indiana has even the underground.
Yeah,
where you can walk
yes, they do.
downtown underground.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they blew it up. Indianapolis and all those places. Yeah.
Yeah, so Naptown saw the walkable entertainment model, and now when they built Lucas Oil, they had the basketball arena. The only thing they don't have is the baseball stadium, but they do have a minor league stadium downtown. Now Detroit, we saw what all of them did and said, okay, we're going to put it on steroids. And they created, and it made us the only city that has all 4 professional sports teams playing downtown.
Right. Within walking distance.
Within walking distance, right downtown. And it's pretty powerful, man, really. And that's where the sports entertainment models are going. They're headed in that direction. Because of that, Detroit will get a Super Bowl every 20 years because, they don't want to go to cold weather areas.
Right.
All the rich folk want to go play golf.
Yeah.
So we're not going to win that battle, but we got the Final Four coming up in 2027.
Yeah.
And we may be able to stay in the Final Four rotation better.
Hopefully we get an all-star game.
Right, now
Basketball.
All-Star game, yes.
Yeah.
Now we should get that because everybody get a new arena gets an All-Star
Yes.
game.
Well, it's so interesting because I was seeing where one of the draftees had made a comment and was saying there was nothing to do in Green Bay, and compared to say other, like here when we were here last year, people were just bragging about all the things to do in Detroit, and you would have thought that there would have been more opportunities to do more things in Green Bay.
No. That's not that kind of town. If you ever been there, that's not.
Well,
I think they got, 140,000 people that live there, period?
And they had about, I think they said 125,000 that was there
Yes.
at the draft last night. And I don't know how it's going to be tonight. If I'm sure they probably might not have the same amount of people come out.
They probably will.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be there.
Now, it's a big sports town. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking.
no.
Well, especially because of the fact that now Keith Leland, I know that they said the fans own the team.
Yeah.
So they're invested in the team, invested in the in the venue, itself. So it probably would generate a whole lot more of a fan base, to come out and support, the team like that.
Well, the NFL, in their infinite wisdom, looking at marketing, they're always trying to improve themselves because they don't want basketball and baseball and all them to beat them up.
Right.
So they look at themselves. They only play 16 games. They got the shortest season, and they say, how can we stay relevant all year round? So I had never been to a draft because it was always held in New York. So, when I was in L.A. and we was covering the Raiders and the Rams, we just go to the team's facility after the draft. That's the way it was done. You interview the players in your town. But going to the draft wasn't a priority. If you was a beat writer, you probably would go. But the NFL looked at, I think about 6 years now, and they looked around and said, wow, we could turn this draft into give it to the people, the fans, because it's free. And it also will give the cities to
Influx of money.
the cities that have NFL teams that would never get the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because you're not going to get the Super Bowl if you don't have a dome.
Right.
That's number one. And if you're in cold weather areas, most of them don't have domes. Just Detroit, even Chicago don't have one.
Right.
Now they plan on building one because they see that Detroit getting the Super
That's
Bowl
right.
Final
That's
Four.
it. Yeah.
They're like, oh, wait a minute now, Detroit kicking our butt. We getting in the game.
Right.
So they supposedly they have it on the board that they're going to build in about 3 years. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Tell people how long you've been doing what you've done, because I don't think maybe some are watching, they don't know what you've been doing and how long you've been doing it.
Well, when you write for the black press, you don't get the national attention from people. You know what I mean? Because we don't have that reach.
Mm-hmm.
But surprisingly, the black press shocked me in its power and its reach when I started working for the Black Voice News and the L.A. Sentinel in Los Angeles. I was feeling some kind of way. I go to the Coliseum. Then you see the L.A. Times, all the white boys sitting in the front, right? And we out in the back somewhere. They, they'll treat us the same. I mean, just the whole thing. But it is what it is. And then you feel some kind of way. But the reality is that they're daily. So you got to get real about this. Mm-hmm. So they got more access and they have more opportunity to present information. And so when you realize that, that's just part of the game. That's how it's going to be played out. But starting out, our population at the L.A. Sentinel, I was kind of shocked when I met Jim Brown, and the guy's like, "Well, I know who you are. Come on up to the house." I'm like, "What?" I'm like a little baby because I'm thinking we don't seem to have the same reach as the L.A. Times. Mm-hmm. But shockingly, within the black community, those that read, and even those in our white brothers and sisters that are reaching out and trying to learn more than what they've been told, they read it, and the people in the know seem to read it, and it's enough to keep you in the mix. But we can't compete numbers-wise and everything else. But, surprisingly, it has a bigger reach than I ever thought it had.
So let me ask both of you, too. So when you look at the different sports venues, what team do you think is the most, I want to say, profitable of all the teams? And we can either do basketball or football.
Well, it all depends on what sport. Because, Dallas has he's cornered the market. Jerry is,
okay.
with Dallas and Texas is a rich state anyway. L.A., Lakers.
Yeah.
You got the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, Dodgers
yes,
is king of baseball now. So most of them making money. They wouldn't stay in the business if they weren't making money.
They are tax exempts, which is something I never understood.
Yes, yeah.
But none of them pay taxes. The NFL, none of them.
Yeah, because I was finding out that they, even like with the bringing some of the bowl games in, there's a lot of amenities that the teams get, to bring those bowl games in. Like you said about the tax exempt, making sure they got a certain number of rooms, minimum hotel room for all of the, for the players and everybody else.
Infrastructure for them to host those things,
Right.
They get that. The city has to pay for that.
We've done a good job of repurposing a lot of those old buildings downtown, giving us enough hotel rooms. 'Cause that was a problem early on. When they first held the first Super Bowl, everybody was standing out the airport, just way out, 15, 20 miles outside of town.
Yeah.
And then it's good, too, when you got, like you were saying before, Keith, when we started the show, you've got pretty much like all four venues right in the same little
downtown.
area, and I mean, that's kind of unheard of. And then you look at the entertainment district that's right there adjacent to the Fox Theater, and and
But entertainment is connected to the sports because they use the same arenas.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah,
and it really amazed me because I was wondering because back in the day with the Olympia and when the Red Wings used to play, and then sometimes the Pistons would have games there at the Olympia, but most of their games were down there at Cobo. But then now you've got Little Caesars Arena and for the hockey games and for the basketball games.
That's right.
And it still amazes me, Keith Leland, how they can change from one night to the next night.
Oh yeah, they work all night. They have it down to a science.
Right.
I learned that when the Silver Dome, because they could change that venue and it was huge. They could change it overnight, and they had the big trucks. What was that? The big trucks they used to have bring in there to do all of the crazy stuff. They could change that overnight.
Yeah, because you see them when they had with the
dirt and all of that.
Right.
Saint.
You know about that, now. Come on, now.
I didn't know
Lena and I
that.
go back. People don't know. But Lena and I go back to like, oh man, I don't even want to age this, but
Yeah, nah.
yeah,
I'm
but-
70.
yeah. Well,
I
I'm
ain't
70
afraid.
now too, and so we go back to the early 70s.
Yeah.
Well, number one, we were McKinsey, the greatest high school there was ever.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that, but you know, the thing I remember about McKenzie, what I remember most about McKenzie was that's why I wouldn't have driver's ed at. So
Okay, well, that's why it came over there because it was
That's
great.
right.
Everything
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the school was great.
Well, Cass didn't have a
We've had the
driver's.
greatest
We
Dairy
didn't have
Queen.
that.
We've had the greatest Dairy Queen.
That's right.
Oh, right there on Oakman, right there on
Right
Oakman.
over
Yeah,
Coleman.
okay.
Yeah. So you know.
But we
Well, I'm
still.
sorry. I saw something about McKenzie. Mike Gray now. Somebody put Mike Gray's.
Well, Mike Gray has been putting some of his stuff up because people lost track of, and for people who don't know, Mike Gray came out of McKenzie in 74, and he was called Setback. At
Right?
the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so he went on to play at a community college, which I ended up coaching.
Well, you coached
And,
him at
and
then
we,
he went
we won this.
to Nevada.
We won the state championship amongst community colleges and went to Hutchinson, Kansas for the national championship. Finished 5th in the country, and he was an All-American. And then he went on to Reno, Nevada,
Reno, Nevada.
where he teamed with Johnny High to form the Flying High Show, and he was a superstar in that. And so I had been telling him and other people had forgotten how great he was, and so he's been putting stuff up on social media.
Mm.
Yeah. So he
That was one of the great high school teams. In
yeah, it was
PSL
one of
history,
the
wasn't
between
I mean, everybody
us,
take a lit- I
between
mean,
us and
Spencer's
Highland
team
Park,
and all
who
that.
won the state championship that year. We were the highest scoring two teams ever in the state. They averaged like 101 a game, and we averaged like 98
That was
points a
Durad's
game.
team?
Yes,
Oh.
against, and we had Gerald Sims, Mike Gray, Terry Neal, and some, and we averaged 98
Man, that
points
was
a
a heck
game.
of-
Matter of fact, they beat us in the quarterfinals, 103 to 99.
Really? In the
In a
States?
high school game, 103 to 99.
Well, I wish I'd have been there.
And
to
so the
see
young
that.
guys around now don't understand how powerful Detroit basketball was at that
Oh,
time.
yes.
You know, so Mike Gray was a centerpiece, and all the players know about it. Even guys that went on to the pros, they knew about it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first time Larry Bird practiced with us, his red shirt year, they were 40 minutes from us, Terre Haute, Indiana. And when he saw him, he was like, "My God, shooting
should've
that
got
ball, shooting that ball." He and Durrell was two awesome shooters that you probably never paralleled again. Yeah.
Well, it seemed like because Detroit was a hotbed for a lot of athletes.
Oh man.
When you talk about like the last time we did the show, Keith Leland, we talked about like people getting their indoctrination at like places like St. Cecilia, playing ball there, and looking in terms, say, at even some of the neighborhood, the parks.
Yeah. When you talk about football, you go to West Side Cubs, you had the Beacons, I mean, that was just a grooming ground for all of the top high school. McKenzie, I had to say that, Central, Northwestern, Southwestern. There was some great, even Northern, there were powerhouse
Oh,
football teams.
everybody was good.
Even going back before
Kettering.
then. Yeah, before I even became the high school, middle school, Denby was a powerhouse
That's right.
at
That's
that
right.
time back
That
then.
Stewart House
Yeah,
back then.
yeah, and I'm talking about even football. They had games because they used to play at Tiger Stadium, friendship game and things of that nature. So yeah,
Well, we technicians, we didn't concentrate as much on some of the aspects when
well,
it
y'all
comes
had
down
a pretty
to.
good basketball team. Over years, you had a pretty good. Coach Spivey brought in some
Spivey
horses.
did, yeah.
J-Mo,
DeVale Perry.
Mayfield.
all of
DeVale,
that.
right.
Mayfield,
Reese Jenkins.
yeah, Hightower. You
good
had
players.
some good. Eric, you had some.
Well, when
pretty
you
good
said
players.
about
They weren't good as us.
No,
Well-
no.
I told
but
Jenkins that.
but it's just like
But I
when
couldn't
you
tell our
mentioned-
late friend Benny Napoleon that. He just wouldn't. He would never accept that.
But see, that's the same thing. Just like when you said about
Oh, man.
my frat brother,
That's my man.
Maurice Jenkins. So that's my guy right there.
Yeah.
But he wound up becoming an attorney, and him and his lovely wife Corliss, and
yes.
so there's a lot of memories, when it comes down to that part. But now, who's the hotbed now that a lot of the sports celebrities or the people that are going to be into the college, the colleges, Where do you think they recruit most of the people from in the state of Michigan?
Well,
in the
last
state of
year,
Michigan?
the rosters in the NFL put this out. It was 26 guys from Detroit. The most of any city. So I know you might not know that, but, you know, I wrote about that and actually caught up with a lot of those guys. But so it kind of shocked me. Football, I mean, wow.
We actually
We've
did
always had basketball
Yeah.
was turning out.
Right,
the
that's
most.
We
what I
actually
was-
did a program for them last year. Darwin was there because Kyrie Fraser, Detroit is Different, did Mom's My First Hero.
Well, she sure did.
Right, and
The women at the
yeah,
draft.
yeah, and so those mothers came in. There was so many mothers that had
Right.
players that were actually in the NFL at that time from Detroit.
Kyrie's
Yeah.
something else, man.
Yes, he is.
Because that's like when we
He's
did the
different.
show the last time, we had Gladys Bettis to call in.
Yeah.
You know, Jerome Bettis, the bus. We had his mother to call in, and I know that was a kind of like a surprise.
Oh,
you know,
pleasant surprise.
that when we had Gladys, to call in, but so now I think that everybody's kind of so good.
But one of the questions you asked was, Florida's always going to be a hotbed for football players, and California. That's and Texas. That's never going to change because they play it all year round. There are a lot of guys. I have a second cousin, second cousin, that left here before he went into high school, and his grandfather Donald Kane was not. Junior was not happy. He went down to Texas and played his high school ball and is doing great down there because they recruit, and they have these like club teams that they groom them for college and the pros down in Texas, and Florida.
So that was my next question then. So besides Michigan, where are some of the other hotbeds? So like you were saying,
Florida,
places where they can play it pretty much like all year.
all year round. That's always been Florida's biggest advantage because those guys play and train all year long outside baseball. They have the weather, the climate to do that, and that's why you saw Hunter start smiling last night when he was drafted to play
By Tampa
in
Bay, right.
No, in
Jacksonville,
Jacksonville,
right.
Yeah,
Jaguars,
because
right.
he knows he's been down there. He knows what it's all about. Yeah.
Well, and that's something that I was going to wait till
They
that
don't have
second
no
part.
franchise. Jacksonville.
Well,
Well,
Well, at least
but now they
can
may
do
have,
everything down there, though.
yeah, that's
There ain't
right.
gonna be no boundaries on it.
No, it's not.
and that's the biggest thing.
That's
that-
why that smile was on his face.
right.
Well, you got to get him a quarterback to throw the ball. Though.
Yeah, that's true.
But
We'll see.
But now the thing is that you may bring a lot of attention to Jacksonville now
So
because of him being there.
So let's talk, Leland. He can do everything down there. A lot of players nowadays are more concerned about their brand than winning and their money, their marketing. So he's going to be the marketing
Well, that's
jewel
what he
of
is,
that
too.
entire franchise.
He's into the marketing.
Yeah, so
He got
that's
connected.
yes.
I mean, it was obvious the way he came down the portal when he was coming down, and he went and he was, I think, one of the first players to slap, the logo on the wall, and he was dancing and everything like that.
dancing.
Yeah.
But he looked so energized, so energetic, and he was really excited about last night.
And will you be excited to be a multimillionaire and just
Yeah, and that's the biggest
somebody
thing
calls
because they
your
think
name?
about all that
Come on.
money that's going to be generated, not just for them, but also.
I can't
Family.
even think about it.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, and then just like listening
I
to
didn't
some of
get
the
it.
ones that were saying, we had it was kind of like going from the streets to the suites, more or less, as we talk about.
Well, it is.
It is.
Thompson used to always tell me.
Now tell him
Big
who
John-
Rod Thompson is now, because
Huh?
this legend.
I know
don't
he goes to
understand.
see his name,
Oh,
and
I'm
it-
sorry.
it
He
expect
think everybody
to
know
who
all
he's
these
saying.
legends that
Right.
he came in contact with.
But that's why he's Mr. Leland.
That's
So,
right. That's why I say he's a genius. Yeah.
I used to always say, sports is a vehicle for black folk to come away from some of their problems.
Yes.
So let's use it.
Yes.
Stop, because he had to fight, Georgetown's administration, because there wasn't no black people nowhere when he got there. Not in coaching, administrators, player development. So them kind of things they was fighting for. When he got there was no black people in the athletic department.
Same with John Chaney.
Yeah,
when he
then you
went to
bring all
Temple.
these black kids in from the cities. They ain't never been around no white people. First of all, they're at a predominantly white school. They ain't got no money, and now you put all these restrictions on them. You can't. If you get a ride, or somebody give you a car for the weekend, we're kicking you out of school. If Mr. Stein come down and buy you a winter coat, we're kicking you out of school. This kind of nonsense they went on and did. So Tom Cheney and them started the Black Coach Association so they could call attention to this nonsense that was happening to our kids. So like 8 decades they've been hiding behind the guise of amateurism. I mean, just destroying lives, kicking people out of school for hamburgers. I mean, just they actually suspended Tiger Woods because he went to dinner with Arnold Palmer, who paid for the dinner. He got suspended.
Yep.
And he came back, then he had to pay him. Then he said, I'm done.
My first
He stepped away from NCAA after that because he was playing golf for Stanford.
Well, hold that thought. We got to take a quick break.
Okay.
So we'll be right back. My special guest, the OG, Keith Bennett, the expert, Leland Stein. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. We'll be right back.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered. A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wccccd.edu.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Matter. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I want to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. 2 of his 3 children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield, and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.
So pleased to have the OG and the expert on the set with me today. And I think that when you look at the 2 of these young men on the set with me, you probably don't have to do anything other than, that's Keith, that's Leland. oh, you are so fortunate to be on the set with the two of these young men. So it is a plum pleasing pleasure to have the two of you on the show today with us. And I know, Keith, before we went on break, you were about to tell us a story. So we're going to jump right to the chase and let you tell it.
Well, Leland was talking about what John Thompson went through as the first black real known of a major college basketball coach, and John Chaney was over at Temple. They faced a lot of racism, whether it was systematic, whether it was institutionalized, or the writers, everything. So they opened the door, as well as Will Robinson had opened it, coming from Detroit to Illinois. And so my first college job was at a community college in southern Illinois, which was 40 minutes from Terre Haute, Indiana, Indiana State University. So when I arrived on campus, Mike Gray was already there, set back from McKenzie High School. I took with me Richard Johnson, who was a 7-footer, who was David Traylor's uncle, who was Earl Williams, who had played with the Pistons earlier, was his uncle. So they came from a basketball family, Lydia Johnson. And I went out and recruited other players. But we were in an all-white...
How did Tractor escape Richmond then?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
How did who?
Tractor escaped McKenzie.
No, he was at McKenzie.
Did he transfer?
No, he left. He graduated from McKenzie, then went to Lemoyne High School.
I'm talking about Tractor
Lemoyne College. Oh, long story. I don't even want to open that can of worms.
Well, everybody kept telling me
Well, that's a story. That's a story.
I said, well, what happened to Tractor?
I remember when Tractor Trailer was 3 years old. He was sitting in his grandmother's lap, and I was there to talk.
He's a McKenzie guy.
Yeah, I was there to talk about Richard coming with me, and then she said, "This is going to be one that you're going to get later on." I could look at him and tell he was going to be a big guy. I was the most shocked guy when he ended up at Murray Wright, but that's a story in itself. But down in Illinois, we were in an all-white town, and the only people that were minorities of 26,000 were the guys that I recruited, about 9 black players, including Mike, myself, and no black students. There was a family that lived in Detroit, out of Detroit. She ended up being a judge, Jane Varner, and her husband was down there. Her son is the president and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Greater Detroit, Dan Varner.
I used to work for him?
Yes. And then there was one family down there that was black. One of the kid played for us. We went through a whole lot of racism. And so it wasn't until Mike Gray just shared with me recently that was the most miserable time in his life. But we were winning. We won 30 of 33 games, national championship. He made All-American. And to hear him say he was miserable because of the racism that we went. They would spit on the back of my suit coats. They would put gum on the back of my suit coats. I had referees say, "Boy, sit down." And I had to deal with all of that stuff. And so by the time we got ready to leave that town and that college, we were heroes, and they begged me to stay there. And Mike is still seen as a hero down there. He's a legend down there. So people like you, who were the forerunners for black writers and journalists, you need to be telling your stories, because the young people don't understand what it was to go through some of the things. And a lot of times when we open our mouths up, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to hear what them old guys got to say." But if we don't tell these stories, that's what they're trying to wipe out in our country. That you would think you always had it great. But some people paid the dues. And he mentioned Ron Thompson earlier, who was Mr. Baseball, football in the city of Detroit. So he's been connected with some legends. That's why I say it.
Didn't even know it at the time.
No, we didn't.
You're 10 years old.
Yeah.
You show up on the West Side Cubs in 1964. It's nothing but legends now you get older.
Yes.
Even the players, you know.
I worked under Sam Washington in St. Cecilia's, which
Right.
you see me for 10 years. That was my home. I spent more time in St. Cecilia's gym than I spent in any place for about 10 years in my life. And so when people ask me, now you've been out of basketball, the last time I coached was 07, 08 at Renaissance High School. How do you think you know?
Randy was there?
Yeah. How do you think you know so much about basketball or sports or whatever? That was my life for so many years. And so to sit in St. Cecilia's and see, I was talking to a guy yesterday. I coached Daryl Dawkins during the summer. I coached George Gervin. Magic Johnson played his first game in the city of Detroit on my team. I coached guys like Phil Sellers. We played against New York.
Phil from Rutgers?
Rutgers, yeah. That was Dick Vitale's guy. Yeah, so, you know, and Phil Hubbard played with me at the time. Greg Kelso played with me for a lot of games. I can't even count. And so basketball is something that I know just and have never. My mind just stays focused on it. I can watch a game. I don't watch it from a fan's perspective. I watch it from a coach's perspective.
Because he's the coach.
So you guys were at the game.
Coach.
You guys were at the game last night, and I know you were there. Here's what I saw. And I saw it, and anytime I put something on social media, I get a lot of credit. I love Cade Cunningham. I think he's a man. He's one of the top 15 players, probably in the NBA. But when you have one man that dribbles that much out the clock, the shot clock, and you don't swing the ball and pass it, that's their biggest struggle. And they're playing New York. You seen New York was moving the ball around, hitting the open spot, other than hitting the shots, you know.
Cade don't take too long getting his shot off.
No, but as a point guard, you got to be conscious of how
11
long.
assists.
But how long
He
you
averaged 9 assists.
But how long are you dribbling that ball? How long are you?
Well, that's true.
possessing
I'm saying
it?
he averaged 9 assists. Ain't 4 or 5 people in the whole NBA did better.
Nah.
And he ain't even a point
I
guard.
bet you if we were sitting,
he needs a guard. He needs a. If he had a.
You just said the key word. I argue with people all the time on social media. I said he's a great player, great, but he's not a point. Oh, he is a point guard. OG he is. I said he's not the prototypical point guard.
Well, true.
Right. He needs a point guard.
It'd be nice if he had.
Well, he can just catch and shoot.
Right, catch and shoot and move.
Yeah.
And run, get off the ball a little
and
bit.
run. Yeah.
But he might could have done that with Ivy because Ivy was starting to come into his own before he got hurt.
Yeah.
But he really was coming into his own.
They're going to improve. This is just a good learning experience.
Yeah, yes, it's a learning experience.
So I'm looking at it, and people think that's critical. Coaches are not being critical when they look at a game. We look at it for how can we develop this player, what can we improve, how can we win this game. Because if you're a coach, you want to win every game. You're not sitting there like, I want to lose by 2 points. No, I want to win every game. And so that's the mindset.
But see, it was so rough last night, you know, because I was looking like here, you down 4 points with a few seconds left in the game. And then I think that they were fortunate to get that 3 point, you know, but then now you're still down 1 point. And then here you had hoped that Brunson would have missed both free throws when you fouled him, but he hit one, and they were still down by 2 points, you know, with, 0.5 seconds left in the game or something, and wasn't much that you could really do, you know, from that standpoint. But
they didn't
but
get
you
a
don't
good
lose.
game from Harris. He didn't give him nothing.
No.
Beasley's still off.
Beasley hadn't been really on during the playoffs.
He had a great year. Then the playoffs show up 9
But see, here's the question.
It's terrible.
Why was he available to Detroit? Because maybe that's the point, that
Well, it
during
is.
pressure situations, he
about it.
can't, or when the defense is all up in his face, he can't get that shot off. See, that's what I'm sitting there watching. Not critical, just trying to figure out how can we, Detroit, become the best team.
Beasley-
And not criticizing the coach. He deserves Coach of the Year. To me,
No, he
Bickerstaff.
did a good job.
Yeah.
He did a good job. I don't know. I like Cade Cunningham. I think the
he's-
Pistons, they've done more with less.
Yes.
They kind of remind me of our Spartans this year. You know, they got
Yeah.
10 guys they rolling out there, and on any given day, you're not sure who's going to give it to you.
Right.
And it's worked for them a
Yep.
lot. But unfortunately, when you don't have them superstars,
It's
they had
hard.
them bad games. Superstars supposed to kind of be consistent.
See, the other thing
But see,
with-
people like Beasley and all that. Like Hardaway had a big game yesterday, and they wasted
But
it.
Hardaway was hitting all them 3-pointers. I mean,
Right, he
Hardaway
said-
hit like about, what, six,
Six
seven?
or seven.
That's not
Yeah,
what
yeah.
has hurt the Pistons all year. They have one rebounder in the game at all times because
Right.
they can't play Stewart
Right.
and Durham at the same
Right.
time because then your
Right.
offense goes bad.
Right.
They need another big rebounder who can hit outside shots.
Right. Well, right now, Harris is supposed to be that guy. He's the power forward.
Why was he available?
Because of that reason. I ain't going to say nothing negative. But yeah, he's available.
Yeah.
But look, patching together Beasley, Hardaway, Harris.
That was you can't complain
Yeah,
about
you
it.
can't complain.
Can't
They've
complain.
given them as much as they
And
can get out of them.
Bickerstaff coached his
Yeah, he
butt
did a hell of a
off
job of coaching.
and the GM on
Trajan.
Trajan did a
Landon.
good job. It's
Yeah.
just that they
I
need
hate
some
these
more
Dookie,
talent.
though.
They need some more
Can't
talent.
stand seeing a Dookie running our team.
Well, you know.
So who do you think then? So I'm hearing you, Keith. So you think that they need to draft and then
No,
convert
they're
Cade?
not going to find it in the draft. They got
You think
enough
so?
youth
Okay.
because they're not going to have.
So you think they need to trade?
I don't even know if they have a first round draft pick yet. I don't think they have it. I think they traded it away.
I like Sasser, shoot.
Yeah, I love Sasser.
Every time
I
he got a
love
chance, he ball
I
out.
love Sasser. Yeah, I love
That
him.
dude, he good.
I loved him when he was in college.
Yeah,
I
the
loved
Houston.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. Plays defense.
I don't believe they don't have a first round draft pick. They traded that away, so you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that sure thing in the
Fire.
draft. Superstar. You might find a diamond in the rough. They got to get it by free
A
agency.
trade or
Or
free agency.
Free agency.
So who do you think that they might want to try and go after if you're talking about free agency?
Ain't no telling right now.
Right. And then you never know
Wait,
who's.
see how the playoffs play out and
Yeah.
whose contract come up.
Yeah.
You know.
And then you got to figure out who wants to come to Detroit. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, KD should come to Detroit. He's got his rings.
Right.
He's not won in New Jersey. He's not won in Phoenix, and he doesn't want to go back to Golden State. Now they're trying to say he should go to Dallas. Why not go to a team like Detroit, who could use your shooting, your height,
And your
Blend.
expertise.
And plus,
The
this is
expertise.
kind of like his personality in
Yeah,
Detroit.
there you
Yeah.
go. There you
Oh,
go.
I'm sorry I went backwards, but y'all talking about some of the guys in Green Bay was talking about, oh, ain't nothing to do. But they sure didn't say that in Detroit.
No, no,
No,
Well, that's
not
because
at all.
Detroit's a
Not
black
at all.
city.
Yes.
And most of the players are
I
black.
mean, it's the blackest
a
city in the whole United
It's a
States.
million places to go.
Yeah,
here.
right.
Yeah.
But Green Bay, you know, there ain't no black, nothing
No,
up there.
well,
But you know, it was so funny. Not to,
it took Gilbert Brown to tell you that.
But you know what's so funny? I was looking at something on social media where they were talking about fans, Lions fans that had those hard hats on, and they made them take the hard hats off, but the ones that had those cheese heads was able to go because they felt like the hard hats could be used as like
Somebody
a weapon.
throw it.
Throw
And
it.
somebody throw
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, that's
You know, but then it was so interesting to me because when I was looking at some of the fans from Minnesota, they had the look like
The horns.
The horns.
Well, you
So
can
it's like-
stab somebody with the
That's what I'm saying. The same thing, Leland. You know,
Well,
it's
see,
like,
Detroit, unfortunately, gets this tag intentionally from outside people because as you start growing, people trying to figure a way to knock you, you know, and that's what goes on.
and see, that's sad. You know, you got right now. I think Detroit Lions are like the nation's team.
Oh, they
you
know
know,
about it.
compared to what
America's
Dallas
team,
used to be.
yeah.
Right, America's team. You know that everybody loves to see Detroit in their arenas, and they have a real good fan base that goes all over. Just
travel well.
just like Michigan.
Yeah, they travel
You see
well.
University of Michigan all over the country, you know, in different stadiums, different venues, all that. Whereas like, and it's recognized.
The Spartans
When you see
too.
that M,
I was getting ready to say, he's sitting here.
well, I ain't gonna sit up here and
He's
give,
sitting here
I ain't gonna
with a
give Michigan
spotty
that
over
much
here,
credit.
you trying to-
But, you know,
everywhere.
Right.
but that's the thing, because just like they're talking about all last night, they were talking about Harbaugh and you know and all that. Because the first game that the Lions are gonna be playing against is gonna be against Harbaugh and
Yeah,
the
Canton.
Chargers, and you know it's like, okay, but and then you had all those players last night that were drafted by Michigan players that were drafted, in the draft.
I would agree with Leland. Michigan State travels well too. It's just that the media favors a little bit of Michigan, and so the
A little bit?
yeah, a lot. And so the
Okay,
perception
I was about
is
to say
that
they favor them a lot,
The
but-
perception is that Michigan travels far better than anybody, but no, I've seen state places they travel just as good.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
Big Ten travels.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
Wisconsin,
Yeah.
Iowa,
Yes,
all of them.
exactly.
They got
Exactly.
And
some
you
money. I don't
see-
know where they got his money from. But
Yeah.
well,
they
now
go.
that they've joined
bowl
with the
games?
Pac-10 and having those,
No,
USC,
Pac-10
and,
joined the Big Ten.
yeah, well, okay, we'll look at it that way. Then the Pac-10 joined the Big Ten, but then
Well, I got to say this now. You done
Go
brought
ahead.
something up. After watching all this fighting carrying on, almost 14 years ago, Thompson and Cheney thought they had got enough coalition that they could get to the NCAA and maybe get the kids a stipend, finally, right? They had thought they had got that far and maybe bring the parents to one game. They had fought for this and put this before the NCAA. Now, collectively, almost everybody was saying, pretty good idea, maybe it's time. But the white schools in the South wouldn't relent because they get equal voting on the committees. We ain't paying no black boys. We ain't giving them no money, and we ain't doing it. And to this day, even with the NIL is just the boosters. They used to pay them. They used to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Now, it still ain't the schools.
But you see
Still
what
ain't
happened.
paying.
You see what happened when
'Cause
the
the South
NIL
don't pay
came
them
in.
dudes, man, I'm telling
The older people from the older group of coaches start resigning, start retiring,
Oh, yeah.
because they didn't want the field to be level.
Right. That's
See,
true.
that's what it was, a level. And people have, I mean, money has a propensity to ruin most things when it gets out of control. And
Right,
now the NIL is there, but you can't fault the players because for a long time they were
8-9
denied.
decades.
Yeah.
They've been taking all the money. If you ever go to a Rose Bowl or BCS championship game, it's all our white brothers and sisters everywhere with their family and dogs and cats and nannies and staying in the best hotel. If I gave a brother a Happy Meal, they kick him out of school. So I mean, it's just been going on since ridiculousness.
Well, that's what Harbaugh fought when he got doing the COVID, when he got caught buying the hamburger. He said, "Come on now, all this stuff going on and everything, and and now the schools telling on each other, Ohio State telling on him. All of them been cheating." But I could tell you some stories back in the
well,
day.
they all cheat. But I don't call it cheating. I call it being human. You bring a poor black boy up here from the city with no money, and then Porsches everywhere, and you're in the PWI, and he can't get nothing. He can't get a rental car.
Before I went over to the University of Detroit to coach, I was traveling with Dick Vitale and Smokey Gaines when they were doing recruiting. And Moses Malone they were going after. You all saw the things they were offering Moses Malone. But if you saw what he lived in, he couldn't turn down going straight. I mean, I had never seen anybody other than some of my family in rural Mississippi that poor. So you're right. I mean, come on.
Remember the running back? Oh, but back to the Pac-10. Because once Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC, the rest of the country looked around, and especially the Big Ten, because they're actually the leaders in the SEC. Because academia does everything, research, this. I mean, it's crucial to the structure of American society. The Big Ten looked at like-minded schools, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, where Jackie Robinson went, and all these guys, and USC, and they said, okay, we are like-minded in our curriculum and what we're going to teach, and we're not kicking no books out, certain things. The Big Ten schools are not doing that stuff, those 18 schools. So they've combined, it's more than athletics. They combine because it's a fight, to me, for the South and the North. That's why the Big Ten is sitting up here, and they grab them other schools because they're trying to change the discourse about what's going on. They need help. And so they got UCLA and USC and
Oregon State, and Washington.
And those like-minded schools mirror the mindset of what the Big Ten is doing as far as curriculum, how they approach diversity, and those kind of things. And so it wasn't just football, them getting together. It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's
research,
academics, everything. Yeah.
It's fighting the South. It really is fighting the South and their negativity.
Because, UCLA,
Look how they
USC
vote
is
the
out
South.
there.
Look what they vote on. Look at the things they're doing down there.
Right.
So
banning books, doing it. I mean, stop it. Making voting harder.
USC is
voter suppression.
And
It's just
UCLA
on
are
and
part
on.
of the Silicon Valley, so now they get that research to come in and tie it in. So it's strengthening both conferences.
Yeah, but the conferences are in the fight, in the battle that's going on. It's almost like a civil war again, North versus South.
Well,
it hadn't changed at all.
Nope.
And that's what the SEC and the Big Ten represent.
That's
it really does.
That
man.
starts in Washington. That starts in Washington D.C. Look at the background I'm sitting in front. That starts when you said Civil Wars. That's where we back at.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they brought those guys in here. A lot of people are like, oh man, they used to play this. No, everything must change. Nothing stays the same. And sometimes change can be good. In this case, it's good for the rural schools, the northern area schools, and the Penn State. They got Maryland over there. You got Rutgers for New York.
Right.
So we got a footprint on both coasts.
Yep.
And
in the Midwest. Yep.
And if you look at how they vote, those states, if you look at what they're teaching, and you can see why the marriage was fruitful. And it was way about more than sports. That's one thing that we all got to realize. That it's about way more than sports.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like you're saying about it goes from east to west coast. And when you look at the different leagues throughout, with the Pac-10, formerly Pac-10, now the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, and, some of those other divisions. Now, I know we're partial to the Big Ten, but who do you think is also the more dominant division and we'll go football first?
Well, Big Ten done took over. Michigan won it, then Ohio State 2 in a row.
Right.
And that's what the SCSC is. I mean, SEC
Yeah.
is
They
fighting
want to
now.
win football more than anything.
They're fighting.
They
Rather
won
than
basketball.
basketball.
Yeah, they're fighting that now. But they're
Football is
kind
their
of
thing.
pumping and flexing now about
They
basketball
are pumping
too.
and flexing
you know.
about basketball.
Yeah,
Ain't no doubt about that.
yeah, yeah.
They really are. I'm shocked.
And it's,
To
like you
see
said, Lynn, it's
the
north
South.
and south again.
It is. Man. It's
I mean, and then
war.
when you look at here, I thought that this was probably a very good NCAA tournament with the Final
the best
Four
one.
with
Best
basketball.
one in a long time.
This
It
was
good.
this was a good tournament.
Oh, it was
This
good.
was a very good
They
tournament.
needed to because the women
women
outdid
were
them last
outdid
year.
them last year,
But
right.
they came back this year with a vengeance.
Yeah, and they did, and then I think that when you had when Connecticut lost, it's like, and you knew you were going to be, you were going to get another, champion, and then you see the teams like, especially when you had black coaches that were in the Final Four, and that's the thing that I think was really more impressive to a lot of people, seeing the black coaches, not just the players, but you're seeing black coaches, especially like folks like Kelvin Sampson, who's been around
wanted
a
him to win
long
so
time.
bad.
A lot of people that wanted him to win.
He was
A
our
lot of
Dusty
people.
Baker. He's the Dusty Baker of basketball.
The basketball, and that's the
He
thing that
came
a
so
lot of
close.
people want to see a black coach win, just like Dusty Baker with the Dodgers.
But then
it's
again,
like
what
that.
sells is a lot of people don't want to see black coaches win.
No, ain't no doubt about it.
See,
Ain't no doubt about that.
that's
son.
another thing because now, you saw that with Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people jumped on that, the women, because of her. So we have this
And they
divided
jumping on it again now because of Paige Buckers.
Yeah, we have. Well, Paige deserves it. Paige.
Yeah, because we was talking about that the other day about
Paige.
Paige.
Everything
Juju got
she,
some commercials.
everything
Don't leave
Paige,
Juju out,
everything
man. Come on.
Paige gets, she deserved. It wasn't no hype with
She
her.
can hoop, can she?
Yeah, she
That
can just
sister on
flat.
that team pretty good too.
Yes, she
That other
is.
one.
She
is.
Paige
She's
can
good.
flat out
She
play.
is.
What's her name? That one? That God? Oh
Yeah,
my God.
Paige can flat out play.
She can play.
Well, she plays. I mean, she's
They took it to
unrelenting.
Don. They just beat the brakes off of her. I couldn't believe
Don
it.
got caught the same way the Pistons got caught. She got caught with no inside strength, or not enough, because she always had those big
She
girls.
had the big girl with a big girl that got hurt. in
Yeah, but
Chicago.
she got hurt. But that's what she got caught with, because she always had that big girl in the tournament.
Yeah, she
Whether
had
it
the big
was
girl.
the girl that came last year, or I'm thinking about the one that plays with Caitlin right now. Yeah, Aaliyah.
Was it Leah Boston?
Yes.
Yeah, and see, that's the big thing now, that it's like the women's, the WNBA. I'm really kind of sort of looking forward to them in their basketball arenas, because everybody's thinking about, okay, they want to already Dallas, Indiana, because of Paige, because of Caitlin. Now you've got Dallas Stars wanting to get a much bigger arena for them to play in.
They forgetting Vegas. I mean, you can't. I mean, Vegas
We
got.
might get a team here in Detroit.
Yeah,
They're trying
that's
to get
right.
one.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because I'm hoping they can get who do we have? What was it?
The shot.
Shot.
The shot.
Yeah, Bill Lambier coached it in the home.
Yeah.
It was assistant.
Oh, that was one of the great games. It's just how they treat the women. The Shock had won the championship the year before, so they get back in it. And Palace of Auburn Hills doing the playoffs, the book that for somebody else. They couldn't even play the game.
Couldn't even play the game.
But it made it better because they played it at the Joe.
But
19,000
but
was
you know,
down
I
there,
see-
and they won that bad boy at
You
the
know,
Joe Louis Arena.
I saw
Remember that
Spin
game?
Cash, and Spin was like the player.
Her and Deanna Nolan,
Yeah.
Yes.
Ruth Riley,
Yeah.
they had a good team.
And that's the thing
And
that I would
Carmel
love to see
Lowe's
back.
daughter. What's her name?
See, the shock would have did.
Cheryl, Carmelone's daughter.
Her name was.
It wasn't Malone.
No, it
was
wasn't. Because
Cheryl,
they just reunited their relationship. But the shock would have been better had it been in Detroit versus out
It
in
would have been.
Auburn Hills. Because basketball is really a city game.
It
Now
is
it's
city
worldwide now,
game.
but it
is
really
worldwide.
is a city identified game.
Well, and that's the thing that I'm hoping, just like you were both saying, that they can bring the shock back, to Detroit. Because like you're saying, I think you'd have a larger fan base come back to
Oh yeah, it would. It would
if
be
it was
awesome.
in the heart of Detroit.
Because
you
now
know.
men love it more as much as the women now. As far as
Well, last
women
night,
play.
it was sold out.
Mm-hmm.
I get there 2 hours before the game. I couldn't even get in.
Did you get a shirt?
downtown. Yeah, I got a shirt. They had it on the chair.
They had shirts on all the chairs,
On all
but,
the chairs.
right.
I gave it to my grandboys. But it was packed, and everybody was there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was running across folk I ain't seen in 100 years, man. I'm like, whoa.
And then even people
The whole-
outside.
The baseball team was
Yep,
there.
it was there, yeah.
They had the bunch
Football,
of
yeah.
A bunch of the football players,
they was
were
all
there.
there. They started coming last year,
Yeah.
even though they was doo-doo last year.
Yeah.
The football players were coming at the
Yeah,
end of
it
last
was support.
But the thing is that just like even yesterday, they had all of the what was it that they had, like starts at 10 o'clock
The
in the
Fun
morning.
Fest.
The Fun Fest, right? So
was
there's a lot
packed.
more to do down there.
It
Just
was
like
hot
even with the
yesterday.
draft.
When you used to go to the Palace, number one, the first thing you had to figure out how to get down in there and get to the parking space and what.
no.
And then after the game, you just had to go
Yeah,
home.
you just go.
Right.
Just go home.
And then you had to twist and turns trying to get back on 75.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And
I
whereas
hate
now
that.
with downtown at Little Caesars, I mean, you got expressways right
I'm
there.
so happy to get back home.
And you can get on the people. I'm sorry, the Q line.
Yeah.
And ride back up. But I think the thing is right now is that if we could get the shock and get the enthusiasm back into the women, game. So Michigan and Michigan State are really having some good women basketball players in their schools. So, we got a hotbed of not just the men, but also the women.
Oh, yeah, the women.
And I think the thing is, too, is that the Pistons, as you were both saying, we may be 1 or 2 players off, but the one thing that we have solidified is a great coach
And a great player.
and some great players.
Now, if he's
Right.
such a great coach, why isn't he coaching Cleveland?
Personalities. See, that's the thing that
Yeah,
shifted
that's
with
a tough one.
what shifted with the
'Cause look, they
what
won. They
shifted-
won 50
hold on,
games last
What
year.
shifted with the NBA years ago, it became a players' league.
So,
So you can have back
not in the old days.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, no, that you wasn't gonna run Pistons. Chuck Daly ran the Pistons. You wasn't gonna run it when Larry Brown was there just 20 years ago. In the last, and I don't want to use any names, Kobe wasn't even running the Lakers. Phil was running the Lakers.
of course he did.
So now 1 or 2 of your great players can run a coach out. Where they used to sit down and say, "Let's work this out," because you don't believe it.
Imagine
Don't
them
believe.
fired McKinney.
Yeah.
No, they
Yeah.
would be coaches be getting fired.
Yeah,
since
but
McKinney.
but Magic.
I know they don't
but
but
Magic,
nothing.
But Magic,
They fired him.
hold on.
You
But
said
Magic,
they don't.
But Magic was the league at that time.
Okay, hold that thought.
Don't
Hold
matter
that
what he is,
thought.
it's
We got to
FIFA.
take a
No,
break.
no.
We got
He
to take
was
a
the
break.
league at that
We got to
time.
take a
No,
break.
got him fired.
We'll be right back. The OG, the expert, I'm Darwin Griffin. We'll be right back.
Hey, I know you've seen them. Those sleek vapes that everyone says is better than smoking. Here's the truth. They're not. Did you know that in Michigan, 14% of high school students use e-cigarettes? That's a lot of people risking their life for a quick buzz.
Nicotine doesn't just harm your body, it affects your mind too. It can make depression and anxiety worse, and even change how your brain handles stress. You deserve better than to let a tiny device control your mood and your future.
You know, I thought vaping was no big deal until it starting affecting my mood and focus.
Yeah, and did you know that kids who vape are more likely to smoke cigarettes?
But there's good news. You don't have to do this alone. Whether it's through friends, family, or a support group, there's always a way out.
Your health, your future, you're worth so much more than what vaping has to offer.
Detroit's got your back. Visit CUYFDcoalition.org for tools and support to help.
WGPR Detroit HD2.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
We are back with the OG, with the expert. I'm Darwin Griffin, and it probably doesn't need much of an introduction. We know this is Mr. Keith Bennett, Mr. Leland Stein, and we really just kind of touched upon the surface when it comes down to, especially with the coaches, with the players, and sometimes you can have players that have more of a name recognition and branded for the team, but you also have some coaches that are the same way. Because, you know, like you were mentioning before we went to break, you know, you look at, was it Kobe's team or was it Phil Jackson's team? You know,
Phil's team.
And that's the thing. Whose team was it? You know, and the same thing when it comes down to even back when Bob Knight was coaching at Indiana. Was it Bob Knight's team?
It was Bob Knight's University.
Isaiah? Right.
Knight's University.
And that's the
Bob Knight
thing.
tried to mess over the president.
Yeah, and the same thing when it came down to John Thompson,
was terrible.
And you know, and Allen Iverson, or like Patrick Ewing or something. You know, whose team? You know, who was the one? And I really want to say, like when you had a Pat Summitt with Tennessee, or you had a Gino. I know I'm probably missing his name, you know, Amarami, how would you say his last name? But, you know, but you had those individuals, and just like the same thing with Krzyzewski with Duke, you know, versus a Grant Hill or, you know, Christian Leitner or whoever other, you know, was playing, you know, with them. But it just really depends. And just like even now, I can't name, like Kelvin Sampson has got a real nice pedigree when it comes to basketball. But when you look at the young man that played for Florida, do you think that his game is going to translate into a good NBA career? The young man that
He can shoot.
Yeah, but you know, and that's the thing, because I mean, I saw him penetrating all throughout that game.
Penetrate too.
But then, does he have that? You know, I think if he picks up a few more pounds, get a little bit more muscle, or do you think that might throw his game off?
How many pounds did Steph weigh when he came in the league?
Yeah, he wasn't that big.
About 160.
Right, he was very small.
Yeah.
But he had to kind of
Gervin too.
Yeah.
Gervin,
George Gervin,
he weighed
yeah.
about 160.
Yeah. So,
But you know, I didn't realize some of these players are as tall as they are. You know, because when I look at what's the man's name for Boston, the guard he plays.
Tatum.
I didn't think that Tatum was 6'9".
6'8".
Yeah, that's the
6'7".
point I'm saying, because he's like Magic's height.
He's big.
You know, but when you look at him, he doesn't look that. You know, he doesn't play like somebody that's 6'8", 6'9".
Over the years, we've gotten used to height now.
Right.
I mean, we got 7'4", we got 7'5", Manute.
That's true.
And so, whereas Wilt looked like he was the biggest man in the world, you know, then you have Shaqs and you had Jabbar. So we've gotten used to players with height, because point guards now, when Magic started, the big point guard era, even though Michael Ray Richardson was coming in before that. Now, we used to think point guards are 6 foot, 5'11",
Right,
Nate Archibalds and Cousy and all them. Now, point guards are 6'5". Cade said he's a point guard, 6'7". So we got used to height. So it doesn't look as big as it is until you are right up on a person.
And also the game has evolved.
Yes.
I mean, it was myopic on the coaches.
Yeah.
Any big guy couldn't handle the ball.
Right.
Period.
Right.
That's the way we train them and talk.
They weren't allowed to as they
That's
were
my whole
developing
point.
before. Yeah.
Well, as we developed in practice, they weren't part of handling the ball.
Right. And now
That wasn't their skill set that we even tried to give them.
Right. Now AAU,
Which is dumb.
Yeah. Now AAU,
You
but
want
no,
everybody to handle the ball.
because of the
to
way the
best of their
game.
ability.
But because of the way the game was played, then it was a inside-outside game.
Right.
So you didn't want them to be getting caught in it. You
Yeah, but first of all, I'm just thinking, as a basketball coach, I coach basketball too. Now, my thing is teaching everybody to dribble, give them the confidence to do it, makes the team better. Because when you got one guy handling the ball, it's harder. If he get in trouble, but when everybody
Let me ask you a question.
can handle the ball, it's
if
just,
you don't have no rebounds, how the people gonna get the ball?
well, you
to
got to
dribble?
rebound.
So you got to.
First of all, you should be able to just because you rebound don't mean you can't handle the ball.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
Look
when
at Towns
when the
handling the
game
ball
was
good
coached,
for a
when we were
6'7"
coming up,
footer.
the game when we came up, the game the way it was coached and prepared made sense. This
No,
game,
it
hold
made
on,
sense 'cause they
Leland,
taught us that
Leland,
way.
The game did not change until we started playing
It makes sense
Euroball.
because he learned it that way.
No,
Okay.
no.
If he'd have learned the other way, he'd be saying something different.
Go back and ask Mike Gray. I did something down in Illinois as a guy. I ran a 1-4 offense.
Okay, but
it
here's my point.
blew college basketball away. A 1-4 offense. People hadn't saw that.
Okay, but
So
it
my
don't make
mind-
sense. We coaches and we localize the game and put people in pockets, and that's what we did instead of everybody doing everything.
Leland, when I ran practice, everybody got the dribble.
Well, first of all, they didn't. We didn't.
You
Big
telling me
men
I
didn't.
didn't?
Well, you dribble in practice, but not in
Yeah.
the games.
No, right? Not in the
No,
game.
there wasn't no big men dribbling and taking
Right.
it to the hoop.
Who did that?
And bring like
Who
big
started
Jokic.
that? Who started that?
Jokic get the rebound.
Who started that?
Bring it
And
all
bring
the
it all
way
the way
down.
down.
Leland.
Take it to the
Leland.
and then pass it off. Get
Leland, don't
assists.
get caught in the fan opinion. Who started that?
Who started what?
The big man. You got to
Wait a
keep
minute,
your
wait a minute.
chair.
We
He
talking
said
about
you got to
fan.
keep your chairs.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do wrong?
Euroball started that. Euroball.
Because they were smarter than us.
No, their courts were wider. Their
Look,
lanes
first
were
of all,
wider.
the coaches. I've been
Their
around a lot of
lanes
coaches
were
too.
wider.
The coaches thought
Leland,
they were
Leland,
God
Leland.
back in those days.
They still
and
do.
Everything they did was the
They still
law,
do.
and that was the only way
They
to do
still
it.
do.
And that's just not the
They
way
still do.
it should
Leland,
be. We should
Leland,
always be
Leland,
pushing the envelope
Leland,
and expanding
Leland.
the game.
Euroball, the lanes were wider, the key was wider, and all that. And USA was getting their butt kicked, and that's when the game started evolving. When the league was small and you had all these big guys on there, you couldn't have people dribbling the ball.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Think about it. They played zone.
sorry,
Hold
I
on. When
love
we
you.
came up, you played a lot of zones, not a lot of man-to-man. You can't have a big guy trying to dribble through zones.
He ain't got to, just because a big guy can dribble, don't mean you got to try to dribble through a zone.
But
when he get the opportunity to dribble, he can. He feels confidence to do it. It's just made the game. I'll tell you this here. It cracks me up. Like one time I was at a Laker practice. We was covering the Lakers. Jerry West was the general manager. Of course, a bunch of writers, Kobe and them was coming. They was playing on that team. And they was trying to disparage Kobe. And they go, oh, these guys ain't as good as y'all used to be. Said that to Jerry West, right? They don't play the game like y'all played it. Jerry said, stop. He's the only guy I ever heard that told the truth. He said, they faster, bigger, stronger than I ever was.
You answered my question.
Bigger, faster, stronger, do everything better than I ever
answered
did.
my question.
That's what he said.
You
and they sat
winning-
there like this.
You winning my argument.
Because they didn't, because they was expecting him to say,
You
"Get Kobe ain't
winning
good
my
as me," and all that
argument.
kind of
You
stuff.
winning my argument.
What?
The big men wasn't fast back then. They weren't as strong in certain
We ain't
ways.
talking about big men. When I say faster, I'm talking about even gods.
I know,
This
I'm
ain't
saying-
got nothing to do with big
No,
men.
it ain't even no comparison
First of all,
to talent
big man
now.
is only one
Leland, it's
position
no,
in
Leland,
basketball,
we
so
don't have to
everybody else
argue
is small
about that.
man.
It's no comparison to talent now than back then. It's no comparison. There's more talent here. The big men are more talented here, more fast. So they
A
were
guy like Asad Thompson,
Right.
Just
right.
6'7", just defense,
Right.
move, jump.
Right.
I mean, he can't shoot and all that.
There we go. See, now we talking about fundamentals. So
No, wait, hold
now
on.
we going back.
No, see, this is not right. Sports, in every sport, there are players. Everybody has a ceiling. You agree with that? Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. Rodman Won't go shoot no 3-pointers. I see him in the gym shooting 100 3-pointers, practicing, because he was trying to add it to his game.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't have that gift. Sally didn't
So what
have
was
that
his gift?
Oh, his gift, rebounding.
Was his gift handling the ball?
Not right, yeah. A little bit. No, not robbing. No.
So you said more than one.
You answering my question. You answering my fight.
No,
But you know,
I'm
but
not
you
asking
know-
your question. First of all, what I said is that everybody has limits, so I don't care who they are. Certain things they ain't gonna be able to do.
You answering my question.
Well, that's like just like you mentioned about Jokic. Jokic has a good all-around game.
Right.
I mean, he can rebound, he can bring the ball back down, you know, and he can
He's
shoot.
a point guard.
And exactly, you know, and he's a shooting guard as well because I mean he can shoot. You know, he can shoot a 3-point.
Yeah,
he
he
can
can.
shoot. You know, the other person that I think
Based on the way the game is played now.
right.
Because
When they give them the freedom to do it, you get kicked out if you try to a 7-footer shot a 3-pointer.
Well, you know, now it's so interesting because I looked at Michigan when Michigan was playing. You know, in this tournament, Wolf can bring the ball down court.
Yeah.
Now I got to give him
Wolf can
credit.
handle that
Yes,
ball.
he can.
He can handle the
yes,
ball.
he can. And the big four guy from Duke.
Oh, flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think he will probably be, I think, a good NBA player.
Now this is what has happened to basketball players.
Did they tell Gerb he couldn't dribble?
Huh? Well, yeah, I'm sure it was. In high school, coaches tried to do that.
Yeah, but they couldn't tell him that.
Well, no, he got lucky and got to the right
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Because it would have been somebody else would have stuck his butt down in the post and he'd been stuck there. I've seen that now. You've seen that a lot now. Come on now.
Yeah.
But you know,
If
back,
you was tall, you got put in the
Oh,
post
without
whether
a
you could
doubt.
play it or
When
not.
you walked in for
matter
tryouts,
what your skill
when you
level
walked up
was.
back in the day in tryouts, if you were over 6'4", you going back on one end,
back.
you going
Oh,
on the
yeah,
other
there
end.
ain't no doubt about it.
Yeah.
you know, that's
He
so,
played guard, so that's why he's trying to.
Oh, okay,
he trying-
okay.
he trying to stay.
So he's so used to the big
Yeah.
man.
See, I know
being
what
right
I know
there
what
under
he
the-
angling.
Okay. But you know, back in the day, you know, you had the, as you said, guards were like the prototype. They were like 6'2", 6'3". You had the small forwards that were probably in that 6'3" to 6'6", you know, in that
about
range.
6'5", 6'7".
Yeah. And then you had your power forwards who were probably like what, maybe like the 6'8".
So what was Oscar
you know,
Robertson?
They was 6'7", 6'5".
Yeah, but you
Happy
know,
Hairston played
Yes.
power forward for the Lakers on the greatest team
Yep.
in NBA history that set the record of win.
Yep.
He's 5'6".
Yeah.
Happy
So what was
Hairston.
Oscar Robertson?
Jerry West was 6'2", 6'3".
6'3".
Gail Goodrich was 6'1". That was their guards.
Yeah.
back with Gail Goodrich. And,
So what
you
was
know,
Oscar Robertson?
6'5".
6'4".
He was what?
Oscar
He
played
didn't have no
everything.
play. There you go.
He didn't have a position.
Yeah, he didn't have a
I mean, he
position.
did everything.
Well, because he got to do that because he went to a small school.
Yeah,
like
Cincinnati.
without an overpowering coach.
Right.
You get an overpowering coach, they'd have him
Well,
on the
Lena,
wing.
let's tell the truth.
Wait
now.
till you get the
let's
ball.
tell the truth, and you've hit a lot of truths today. You said the coaches was almighty. Most of the coaches back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, early 70s, until John and them got in, Will Robinson, they were white coaches from rural suburbs. That's the only game they knew how to coach. They didn't know how to coach the fast break.
No, they didn't.
So when McKenzie and Highland Park ran the fast break that year that they had Do-Rod, those were the two coaches that understood the fast break game, that studied, and it was blowing people away in the PSL. Like, they getting the ball out and running. Those coaches didn't know how to do that.
No, they didn't know how to do that.
They didn't know how to do that.
But see, that was the average because, like you said, the fast break, they didn't understand that. They didn't know. And then how you set defenses up.
What color was the coach when you got to McKenzie?
White. Andrews.
There you go. See,
Andrews was my coach.
There you go.
But you know, but now
Lavelle. That was our team went to the
Yeah,
city championship.
with Lavelle Perry in it.
Yeah,
Lavelle
Andrew.
Rivers.
Yeah.
Rivers, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Andrew. Michigan
And-
State guy. You know that.
I
don't you?
know.
No, he don't. He done forgot.
I know.
He called out
Well,
Michigan.
see,
we
well-
revoking his card.
well,
Darwin's
see,
Michigan State cards get revoked.
When we look at Michigan State, you know, we talking about the Mike Robinsons, the
Ralph
Terry
Simpson.
Furloughs, and
Ralph
the Ralph
Simpson, that's
Sampsons,
right.
and you know, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And these were all the players that played before you got to the Kelsers and
without a doubt.
Magics, and you know, and but that was back. Basketball was like a sport that everybody did a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking or Monday morning,
Well, Leland said it was our pathway for years in the '60s and out of the ghetto, or out of the cities and whatever.
I mean, because when you looked at a lot of the players, that played, like when you talk about Gervin, I mean, he was a powerhouse at Eastern, and that was the man.
Yeah. And then they gave him a statue.
Yeah, and then they put a statue up. Right. And
things can change over
and they love you after, and even like with all of the stuff that happened with Ed Martin and all that with the, with the Fab Five and the whole, and that whole thing.
Now they fight like crazy in games. And
and it doesn't matter now because they'll be fighting, they'll be pushing each other. And I mean, when you saw that, the what they call it, the brawl at the Palace
brawl.
back when they was jumping all into the stands and
I was there,
pushing and shoving with the.
He deserved it, man. Just because you bought a ticket don't mean you're gonna throw beer on a human being.
Right, you can't do that. Right.
But that's the thing.
That don't mean you sign up for that, man. Depending on where you are mentally at the moment, you're gonna fight.
And that's the thing, because it's like when you see these people sitting on the, right there on the floor, and they're antagonizing the players, and then the players may go and retaliate against them, or then, like you said, they'll throw something at them, or they'll take,
the rules have changed. A player can get a fan ejected from the arena.
Right, because LeBron did that.
And you can get their whole season ticket revoked, or they can't even come. Used to be you couldn't come back. Because Gus, they used to be at Cobo Hall, and the Silverdome used to get on all the posters.
Oh, yeah, because it was legendary. In every city, it was a couple guys.
Yeah.
And they let do that.
Yeah.
Abusive.
Yes.
But it's just 5 black guys out there. Who cares?
And then they can call them all kind of obscenities.
Boston had a history of that. The players that played in the Boston got abused all the time, black players back then.
Yeah,
and let Kyrie says it was going on when he was there.
Well, I tell you how bad Boston was. Bill said, I ain't go back there. He wouldn't go back for awards.
He sure didn't.
Jersey hanging.
Right.
When they broke in his house and pooped in his bed, that was it.
That was it. That would be enough for me too.
Yeah, but he stayed though in Boston. He didn't leave. He didn't make him.
I mean, he never went anywhere else.
No,
he coached, he played, but
and that's really weird. Boston is like they was going through the racism thing, of course, like every city. But even despite the way that racism was, the owner and that coach, they had the first black starting 5, first black coach.
First player coach.
First player coach, everything. So when you look at the history, Boston is the
they broke a lot of barriers.
All the barriers. Yeah. That's weird, isn't it? And we look at them as being the worst. Well, my hate with them came with Bird, because I always wanted Isaiah to beat him, and he couldn't beat him. So, of course, you were mad at the guy that can't beat you, like Jordan was mad at Isaiah because he couldn't beat him.
Well, and that was during the time, I think, that, when you saw the players at Boston, and you saw the Bob Cousy's, Dave
Havlicek.
Dave Cowens.
Havlicek, Cowens, and
Siegfried,
they had a big kid, John that came out of Ohio State, big son, John Lucas.
John Lucas played center.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of good, like you said, players that played for the Lakers, and it was always the Boston Lakers. That was, everybody was tuned in to see that. Now,
you only watched one game a week back then.
Yeah,
they didn't come on TV,
and it was tape delayed.
And you always knew when you saw Brent Musburger, that was the man. Every time you see doing for Channel 2, and then how you saw the evolution of the outfits, the longer, the shorts, the jerseys.
Well, see, that's what basketball has always had to do. When you got 10 black men, tall black men, millionaires, you had to sell it to white America, and it wasn't easy. It's never been easy.
And Lena, it's so different then compared to now, because when you saw the old footage of the players back when, when you had like the Lucases and folks like that was playing, back then, they all came in suits. You saw the men dressed in business suits.
That didn't change until the present commissioner came in. Because when Stern wasn't breaking it when Iverson. That was the biggest argument. That changed when Sterling really came in as he was leaving out. Right.
Well, they went too far. I mean, everything's changed. Coaches don't even wear suits
Well,
anymore.
in baseball, you couldn't have facial hair. But in baseball, you couldn't have facial hair for a long time.
True. That was retarded.
Yeah, the coaching thing to me went way too far. You looking like you just walked in off the street, and I'm gonna coach down here in front of 25,000 people, and I ain't making no money, so I can't wear a sport blazer or whatever,
Well, now when you see the players coming into the arenas and you see them and everybody's looking at their attire and the fashions, and,
they doing that.
And I mean, they really.
But when the coaches changed, that was influenced by Euroball. Remember when we played European team, their coaches would be casually dressed and we'd be over there in suits. They wouldn't do that. So now the NBA wants to appeal around the world to the Europeans, and so we had to change.
But you're seeing, there have been drafts where you saw more European players
in suits,
right? And you saw more European players that were drafted in the first round.
Francis had the last 2 #1 picks.
Well,
Exactly.
why that is, right? They get taught, as he said, they get taught to do more skills, and they're fundamentally sound when they come in.
Well, basketball is turned into a science, just like cannabis has. Cannabis is a science now, and they figure they can help certain parts of the body, and they're looking at it that way. And when they're doing basketball the same way in terms of training, the training techniques are incredible. I think that's why some of our white brothers are getting better. Because I'm looking at my twins. We've been putting them through some of these training skill drills. Man, they're magnificent. You can go on the videos and look them up and showing different drill skills way more than we ever did.
The one thing they're finding out that they found out in the last 20 years.
So anybody can get better if they're willing to put in all this work, starting at 10. And you see these white boys, our brothers and sisters, especially in Europe, that's what they've been doing.
But see, the thing about it is when you get these taller players, and like with Richard Johnson, people didn't know, and there were players before him that he had hammer toes. And so when you poor, if your mother or your family's not buying you sneakers, every time your feet grow, which they grow, you'll develop hammer toes. So he couldn't jump like his Uncle David Trailer or Tractor Trailer because they figured this out. Now they're figuring out, even with the big kid in San Antonio, the Frenchman, is that
Wembanyama.
You got to do studies on their framework because they don't hold up as well under 80 games or 90 games. So you got to watch. You got to watch how they're building their bones, eating their diets and their bones. Because the big guys, you had a lot of them. The big guy Odin from Ohio State didn't play. You had Sam Bowie couldn't last because they outgrow their structural frame. And then that pounding, when you go up 12 feet and you come down on those bones, then they got to prepare their bodies for that.
Yeah, because when you brought back like Greg Oden and players like that,
Oden was the next Bill Russell.
Yeah, and Sam Bowie was Sam Bowie got drafted before Michael Jordan, but he couldn't hold up.
And that's the thing that now you've got players that can't make it through the entire season. Due to like what you were just saying.
Right. Can't.
And the conditioning is something that really hurts a lot of the players. Like I went to one of the first games that I went to when Wembanyama, came here and played. Popovich had to sit him down for spells during the game because the pounding that he was getting against him trying to play the Pistons.
We used to make our big guys wear orthotics in their shoes because their arches would fall easier and stuff, and so now they've even improved the shoes and sneakers and stuff, and so all of that has a part. And it's hard for a guy to go through 82 games and travel and practice and all. It's hard, but you're getting paid $60 million. Nobody feeling sorry for you.
Nobody feeling sorry for you.
Well, and that's the thing, because it's like now things are so different now, especially with a lot of the putting the players right back in. They come out, take them to the dressing room or do something to them, and then or they get on the bike and start to,
That's so their body don't get cold and things. Like when I first met Bob Lanier, at his summer job. See, I tell young guys that Bob Lanier had to get a summer job. Dave Bingham, he got in the auto industry as a supplier because he had to work during the summer job.
Yes, he did.
And so Lem Barney had to work during the summer. And so these athletes that you and I came up with knew they wasn't making $60 million over their entire years.
Right.
These guys making it in 1 year.
So let me kind of jump to another.
But you know, if them
something
guys
on this.
making it in 1 year, the money's out there.
That's right.
Because ain't nobody going broke.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's
None of them rich cats out there crying, I'm broke.
No, they not.
Yeah, and that's the
So
thing.
we should never get mad at these brothers. For
I'm
trying
not
to get
mad
that
at
money.
them getting the money.
No, I ain't blaming you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Some
we got
people
to
bring
take
that up
we got to
first.
take a break. So when we come back, we'll be right back and we'll talk more because I want to kind of get more into like with the draft yesterday. But we'll be right back with the OG, the expert. I'm Darwin Griffin. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
Muscles, joints, or feet tired, achy, or distressed? Tried everything? Ringmaster Rubbing Oil is a vintage topical pain reliever, trusted for over 70 years, with a rich formula for the treatment of stubborn aches and pains. Packaged in a glass bottle for purity, our liquid can also be used in warm water for foot soaks and compresses. A little goes a long way. Try our time-tested formula, available in several sizes.
Make a donation to WHBR-TV and receive 2 2-ounce bottles of Ringmaster Rubbing Oil for $25. Call 313-868-6612.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
In the world of digital broadcasting, transmitters and exciters sometimes do this. If this happens when you're watching WHPR TV 33, please do this. Watch us on Fire Stick, Roku, Apple TV, Google TV, or TV33WHPR.com. Download the WHPR TV app, and we can also be heard on Amazon Echo. So remember, if you see this, you can do this and support the station that supports you.
And we are back with the OG and the expert, otherwise known or AKA as Keith Bennett, the OG, and the expert, Leland Stein. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. But, we've talked about a variety of different topics today and brought up a lot of names. And, and I think that we talked about the college scene, we've talked about the high school scene, we've talked about the professional scene. But I guess the question, the draft is going to be going on for several more rounds, right? And I know that a lot of people, the first 3 picks of the draft were pretty much like the players that everybody thought. But the one player that everybody and I like listening to Nick Saban, and some of the things he was saying, because he was saying people are putting too much emphasis on the player. And they kept talking about Shedeur Sanders. And was he going to get drafted in the first round? And Keith, you and I were talking about this before the show, as to why he may not have gotten drafted, in the first round. And whether or not if Pittsburgh was going to pick him up, because they're in a quandary about quarterback now, since they lost both of their, I think, the little tandem of the starting quarterbacks, that they had. But now they were thinking about who they were going to pick to be the player to come in, and then they got this other gentleman to come in. But do you think that there's any kind of a do you think that Sanders is, how do I want to phrase it, that people may have a resentment towards bringing Sanders on because of his father, because of something about Shedeur Sanders personally, or what do you think?
Well, I know it's nothing personal, because Shedeur pretty smooth there.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get him on,
because they just retired his number at Colorado.
Yeah, they can't get him on doing stupid stuff. I'm totally shocked. I mean, to me, I never could quite get it. I know he's only 6'2", so he ain't that 6'5", 6'4" guy. Okay, he's not fast as Cam. All right, but it's a bunch of quarterbacks can't run in the league, so why they put it on him? All of a sudden, it's a mandate for him because he ain't a great runner. That's part of the degradation that they put into his equation. I'm just looking at him as a football player. On the field, commanding the team, executing the plays. God, it's amazing. He's good. He really is. I mean, they talking about the big arm. There's a million guys with cannons, but they can't throw.
And see, like,
because you got a cannon don't mean you're going to hit the player. Shedeur may not have a cannon, but it looks like from everything I've seen, because you never saw Colorado on TV, but for the last 2 years, I've seen every one of their games. And he can command the team. That's more important than the physical things. That kind. I don't know. What do you think, Keith?
I'm gonna upset you guys if I start.
Go ahead,
talking.
say it. No, you don't. Go ahead, say what
you got to separate hype, especially self-hype. Deion is a master. I don't know anybody in the world that's a good.
He's a marketing genius.
Yeah,
right.
He hyped his programs. Not just that, he hyped Jackson State.
Jackson State, right?
But let me say
you
this.
can hype all you want, but he would have let me know.
I don't think it's personal because he hyped Hunter as much as he hyped his own son. And they picked his Hunter. So it's not race. It's not because he hyped him. It's because the NFL, even the Lions would not draft their current starting quarterback if he was in the draft now, because what the league is moving to is escapability.
Well, it should have been that way forever.
Yeah. The Denver picked that rookie because he could escape and do all the things that should do it.
Kid from Oregon.
Right. The kid that went to Washington last year, Jaden, has opened the door. The kid that came from Ohio State the year before, quarterback, opened the door for quarterbacks that can escape, move up in the pocket. You ain't got to be able to run for us, but you got to be able to manipulate getting away from those quickest heck linebackers and defensive ends. And the thing is, they don't see enough. Mike Tomlin, as bad as he need a quarterback, Pittsburgh is not racist. They don't care about height. They would not have passed on him if he was first-round material. He's not first-round material.
Well, Jackson Dort is. He went ahead of him.
Yeah, you know why?
But he didn't prove it. What happened to all the play on the field?
He can escape.
It's
Every time,
look at, but they can't throw and they can't read the defense.
But if you can escape, you can buy another down.
Oh, but it's a whole bunch of
you can buy a first, but you can buy a first down. The league is moving.
Justin Fields can escape. Look what they're doing to him.
The league is evolving.
Well, I know. I like escapability. I'm with you on that.
The league is evolving as we watch.
That's my problem with golf.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Golf costs us.
Every time.
If you get a 10-play drive,
right?
Unfortunately,
and he has to move his feet.
Somebody going to beat a lineman because nobody can be perfect.
Right.
So that's got to be factored in.
Yeah.
If you got a quarterback that can't escape, then he's going to get a 10-yard left.
Here's what I'm saying.
It messes up your drives all the time.
Sanders
you got to start over.
Tom Brady wasn't fast. 6th-round draft pick. Pat Mahomes wasn't drafted early in the first round. Last place in pick. So don't put him in an agreement with all the hype that he's better than Pat Mahomes. He's better than Tom Brady. He's going to be slotted wherever his talents say at this point that he can go.
Well, that's some truth to that, but they make a lot of mistakes.
They do.
NFL.
They do.
So I ain't buying it.
But hold on.
They done drafted cats way ahead of
now the coach.
playing.
Now the coach is worried.
league.
Now the coach is worried
Ton of
about
number
getting
one
fired.
picks.
The coaches that need quarterbacks worried about getting fired if they bring him in. He can't start right away. Do you think that the Jets?
I think he can start.
Do you
right
think
away,
that? Do you think that the Jets?
he
would
reminds
have
me of
had-
Drew Brees? He's a Drew Brees kind of guy. He got the same body, same everything.
Drew Brees would not get drafted high in the first round now.
No, wait a minute. I don't know what round. Drew,
But I'm saying right now at this stage he would not get drafted high in the first.
W-A-T-E guy.
Yeah, no, he still would.
No, not if he played like he played at Purdue.
Yeah,
he was
no.
All-American.
Yeah, but they're not drafting
Jackson
that guy.
Dort ain't no 6'5". He drafted this guy.
Purdy got drafted when? The last player in the whole draft.
Well, ain't nobody ever heard of Purdy.
Right. So what I'm saying is the game is evolving as we're watching, and the people got caught up in the hype. Deion is a master of the hype.
Wait a minute now. They was undefeated at Jackson State. Colorado was 0-100 before he got there.
So let me ask you a question.
He did something.
When they were at Jackson State, who was the star of that team?
What are you talking about?
When they were at Jackson State, and they
Both of them.
Who was the star?
Shador threw for
Who was the star?
4,000 yards.
Who was the star?
That ain't a star.
Who was the star?
Shador.
Over Travis?
Both of them.
So you saying Hunter was the star?
No, Hunter can't catch nothing, ain't throw to him.
That's true.
If the dude can't throw it and put
hold
all the
on,
money, he ain't gonna catch it.
But the one thing I say about Hunter was on the field most of the time.
No, that's not even where I'm going. Here's where I'm at. You're drafting an individual. Of course, you need a quarterback to get it to even Mega Man. But when you putting your money and millions of dollars in this one player, physical specimen, is it Hunter or is it Sanders?
Well, it depends on what you need as a team. That makes a decision.
That's
for
what
you.
I said. So the teams, Cleveland, who jumped up to get, Jacksonville, who jumped up to get Hunter, they needed a marketing guy. They needed a tool. They needed a weapon. And so...
Because I think they still got the kid from Clemson.
Yeah, they still, yeah. So I don't think it's so much of conspiracy on Sanders. I just don't think.
I think they made a mistake.
Here's what
from looking at football all these years. I just looked at him as a football player. I mean, he could do all the things I need done from a football player.
Unless a kid, I used to tell people this in basketball. Unless a coach is racist or crazy, you're gonna play your best players.
No, they don't.
You don't think
they used to have doghouse, especially more.
We talking today. I ain't talking about now.
But even today, they have to sometimes.
No, players gonna play their best players.
Sometimes.
Because it's too much money involved for you not to do that.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
It's too.
Depends on the crazy coaches.
You get fired. It's too much money. You play your best players.
I wish they did, but they don't always.
Okay.
They don't.
Well, when you look now, the question I want to ask you, Keith. I mean, you talk about.
I would. I'd play my best player.
With Hunter, do you think Hunter is going to play more defense or more offense?
He's probably going to play more defense, and they're going to develop.
So you think
packages.
he's going to be
They're gonna
special teams as well as corner?
He's going to do just like Charles Woodson did, just like his Deion did, just like the guys that played two-way. He's not going to play.
He wants to play both ways.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. You can't do that.
Jacksonville could do it. They ain't got nothing to lose. he wanted to put his butt out there.
Somebody gonna lose.
They'll let him do it.
Somebody would lose. That coach would get fired. That GM.
No, they gonna let him do it.
Okay.
Watch.
No, I'm saying that he will play mostly defense.
That's what I'm thinking. The same thing.
Yeah, but he's gonna be out there on offense.
Yeah, they
a lot more.
He gonna be in the slot and do things of that nature.
Much.
You know.
But that's what I'm thinking, like special teams, because I can see him returning.
No, you don't want him to do it.
You don't think so?
No, you don't put your starters in the return anymore.
Yeah, I just put him out there in the offense.
Well, it's even the kickoff game has got soft now, but you could, but you don't think about doing that in football.
Okay. Well, and that's the thing, because I think that this draft didn't seem like it had the hype that last year's draft did, because of all of the quarterbacks that were drafted, and
well, it wasn't in Detroit.
That's true.
Yeah. But back to the NFL, we kind of started that. We didn't. Man, the NFL, they said we got 16 games. We're gonna turn the draft around, give it to the cities.
We got 17 now.
What?
17 games now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they do right.
They might play 30 games.
They want to move to 18.
They don't care about them guys.
No, they don't.
But the NFL to their genius, giving it to these cities because it's free and people love football. It's the closest thing you can go to going to the Super Bowl or something. You know what I mean? If you like football, if you're a football fan and you can't go to the Super Bowl, or the Super Bowl ain't coming to your city, and the draft come to your city, man, it's just
well for a city like Detroit, for a northern city like Detroit who has harsh winters,
right?
There's not a lot to do,
right?
And so that does break and generate some monies during that time of year, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just good for the NFL. Look what they had last year, 700,000 people for a draft.
And then the thing
That's
that really
the NFL's genius.
But you know, Keith Leland, the thing that I look at is that look at the makeup of all the people that were there last night. I mean, you saw, to me, almost just as many women as you saw men.
You know what it's like? It's like Comic-Con.
But you know, that's
you know, you ever been to a Comic-Con? I went to one out in San Diego, took the boys out. Everybody come down there with their outfits on. The draft is like that.
Well, that's
people
like
come down with
see, women come for a different. Women come because they get their little outfits made up for the special teams and players, sneakers, jeans, and all that.
The women's gear is incredible.
So it's a fashion show for them.
It's a fashion show.
It's a fashion show, and they don't dress for us; they dress for each other, compete. Don't get mad at me, but I'm just telling the truth.
But the men, they had swords on,
pirate
outfits.
They had a big chains around their neck with all of the jewelry and everything like that. I mean, but
the draft is crazy.
But they out there for the duration. I mean, last night was like 7:30 up until 11:30 at night. You know,
you spend a whole year hyping that one day up or those 2 days up. That's great marketing.
Yeah,
like you said, that's the NFL.
And it's free.
Yeah,
remember that. And it's NFL fans.
And the whole family can come to that kind of event.
The family, the kids.
Yeah. Well, how much does it cost for a family of 5 to go to the Lions game? No, over $500-600.
Well, you know, and that's the thing that is such a family oriented sport that, you know, everybody's calling plays, everybody's understanding the different
sports still
schemes.
Brings a cross cultural people together. It's still one of the few things in this country, as divided as we are, that you can get 200,000 people in there of all different races cheering and smiling at each other, hugging each other for about 3 hours.
That's true.
That's true. Because sports pushes beyond regional boundaries.
Most time,
color. Mm-hmm. You know, when your team's winning, man, whoever's next to you, it don't even matter.
Don't matter. You giving each other
you give a hug,
everything.
Right? Or a high five or something.
But you know how it's so changed, because back when we were watching Super Bowls, back when the Bart Stars and folks like that.
I wasn't watching football in Bart Stars.
The Lynn Dawson's and, you know, was playing back in the day. Well, I was watching back then, you know. So it was
black and white TV.
You know, and they had the big rabbit ears and stuff. You know, you having to run up there and adjust.
Put some foil on it.
I actually had to stand there and hold the antenna sometimes.
Yeah, I'm seeing you like this. All right, Keith, move over a little bit to the side. Move over that way, Keith. No, Keith, too much. Come back. Right. But that was back in the day when we used to all crowd around the TV set. But
you only had one TV in the house anyway.
Yeah, well, you know, that's all you could afford, really, because it's like, and then you had the big tubes and everything. Yeah. But now,
TV in every room. Yeah.
You got TVs in every room. You can look at it on your phones now, you know, and you don't have the antennas to be trying to, like you said, to hold on to, and your mom or your dad telling you to stand over there a little bit more, Keith, and you be like, just, is this enough? And you be like, just, and then, like you were saying, Leland, having to get the tinfoil, your mama go in there to wrap the turkey.
Or to have that pair of pliers to change the channel when the knob breaks.
God, we all had to go through the same thing.
Same thing.
And then the thing is, too, is that we were portable remotes, because it's like,
get up and go up there and change the
channel. Right. And you have to go up there, get up there, change the channel, and then we had stations like Channel 9, and you know,
get the pliers to turn
exactly. And then when that knob would fall off, you know, you'd have to go and get the little pliers. Oh yeah. But now things are so different now compared, and then you didn't have to replay, because you know and then what my parents would tell me all the time: don't sit too close to the TV set. We got to sit probably about maybe like 10 feet away from the TV set, or it would mess with our eyes if we sat too close. But we as kids were sitting on the floor, and we looking at the TV and cartoons and sports and, and everything else. But things have changed so much now compared to then. And I remember back when I would watch a Super Bowl game, women would be cooking the food in the kitchen, men would be watching the game. But now you got the men in the kitchen cooking, and the women be sitting up in front of the, right, exactly.
The women catering. You better.
You got pizzas that are all right, and women are having just as much fun watching the game as say what the men do,
Yes,
But I think now you've got all these betting parlors, and and things are so different because it's entertainment, and just like you were saying, Keith, and it's the money. And especially depending on where the venue is, where the stadium is going to be at, where the game is going to be played at. And you're seeing all of the different things in the stadium.
None of these professional sports teams losing any money.
Oh, I can agree with that.
Because they wouldn't stay in business.
Yeah, I agree.
They wouldn't stay in business.
And that's the...
Because none of that money anyway.
Right.
Hold on.
That's right.
Well, and that's the thing, because I think that... so
they just get the profit.
So what do you think then, just curious now, before we, wrap up. So what do you think Sanders is going to land? And what team? I mean, I heard you say about Pittsburgh.
They said
possibly.
Cleveland got 2 picks in the second round.
Right, they traded. So now they got a bunch of picks in the second round.
And Pittsburgh Pittsburgh don't have. They traded this second round pick.
Well, there was somebody else. Raiders.
Yeah, we talked about and see Tom Brady actually tutored him for years.
Yes, he did.
So here's another thing: if Tom Brady thought he was a jewel, they would have selected him in the first round.
Well, Tom did. He said he was.
They didn't.
But the way that Sanders said,
I don't know. I think Sanders' thing it's a lot more layers to it.
There is.
I mean, because the cat, come on, man. What he did more than Dort did with Mississippi, considering how horrible Colorado was when they got there.
Well, and that's the thing.
All I do is judge the guy by what he did with that team.
I don't think. I'm not speaking for ownership.
And he didn't even have a good offensive line.
I'm not speaking for ownership. Now that's true.
He did.
He had one of the worst ones in the country. Worst ones in the country. I think that they're worried about a coach or GM is worried about who's going to have his ear during the season, if his offensive coordinator, his coach, or Pops.
Oh, it's going to be him. Deion ain't getting involved in that. He got a team to coach.
I believe that. That's why I say that.
I'm just surprised,
I'm not first round. I'll be surprised if he don't go in the second round. Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, and I think
it could be good for him. If he slipped, he'd get to a better team, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That he could pretty much like evolve, that has a quarterback that could kind of groom him. Just like the thing you mentioned about Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady.
Tony East.
First of all, if I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round.
Well, he was behind Drew Bledsoe because Drew Bledsoe got hurt.
If I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round, he got to start for me this year. Unless I got a great team where I can afford and I got a great ownership to saying you can lose this year and maybe next year while you grooming this quarterback. But if my job is on the line, the quarterback I draft got to help me this year. And I don't know if he's that guy. But now that Vegas got that back out of was BYU or whatever.
Why couldn't he do it this year? Why can't he throw the ball?
We'll find out if he goes with the right team, though.
But do you think that he could go with the Lions?
Why would the Lions draft? They got golf.
That's just golf. But golf, just like you were saying, golf cannot scramble the way that
they got golf for $40 million for 3 more years.
We stuck with him.
But I mean, you stuck with him, true enough. But
so why would you draft Sanders? Would he be happy sitting behind golf?
The golf ain't gonna be there much longer. If this year. He got away with a lot this year. He played good, MVP level, but he pooped the bed in the big game.
Oh yeah, down in Houston.
No, heck, well, he did that too. But I'm talking about.
Oh, you mean the
Washington?
Washington, yeah.
Even with 4 interceptions and a fumble
here's the problem
on the goal line.
Here's the problem with golf.
You can't win like that.
Here's the problem with golf. Golf cannot go over top down the field. He has to hit the sideline passes, short pass. He can't even utilize Jameson. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with it. If it's a sight perception, he does not go over top.
Well, so let me ask because we got about 5 more minutes left in the show. we lost the defensive coach. We lost the offensive coach for the Lions.
We lost more
Ben
than that. We
Johnson.
lost about 5 or 6
Well, I'm
coaches.
just looking at the
two big ones.
Two big ones. We lost Johnson. We lost Aaron Glenn.
Okay.
Which one of the two do you think will have the better record at the end of the season? Because we know that Glenn is at New York.
We
know that Johnson's at
Johnson
the
inherited
Bears.
a better talent-wise at quarterback.
Okay.
And his team probably is better ready than. But you don't really know because Aaron Rodgers had that Jets team kind of just jacked up. So it's probably equal.
Well, Rodgers got hurt.
Yeah, but
So that messed that
still,
whole Jet thing up when he tore his
but
Achilles.
still, I think Chicago is kind of a little bit slightly ahead of them. But I'm not so worried about losing those coaches because how many players we lose?
Not that many.
Players make coaches.
Yeah.
Lions
Because
still got the
the
talent.
defensive line
Well, we
light
don't
them
want
back.
to minimize the coaches neither because
No.
them two guys did a.
But
They
you
did a
know,
heck of
It's
a
gonna
job.
be hard to
But they
replace
did.
it. But you look at Belichick; he was losing coaches
But the
left
guy
and right.
they-
They kept winning. So I
But
don't
the
know.
guy that they
Maybe we
got,
get lucky.
the defensive coordinator they got now, has
Shepard,
been there all
yeah, he's
along.
been there.
Yeah, he's been there all along. And so he's a fiery type guy, just like
fiery
Aaron
guy.
Glenn. And if you smart, you don't change anything.
You
that
elevate
don't have
somebody.
to.
Right.
No, I'm saying he won't change the way Aaron.
The way he was playing.
Well, he's got to put
Right.
in his own twist,
Yeah,
whatever that
but-
might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and that's something I'm just wondering as to how, because I thought that Glenn did a phenomenal job. I know Johnson did a phenomenal job, and I hope that they can still have the same kind of performance from the players that Glenn
Well,
and
offensively, I might
Johnson.
be worried about a little more. I mean, because the guy ain't calling the plays right, maximizing the talent.
My thing is the Lions
I
still
don't
got.
know. I don't know
They still got the
offensive
play. They
coordinator.
still got the playbook. All they're gonna do is change the cadence and all that. Still got the players. That guy that they hired is still watching the film and breaking it down and what happened against. I don't think. Number one, we got to understand Ben Johnson is a very intelligent offensive mind, but he did not create that Lions, that environment. Dan Campbell did. So why we gonna
They
lose?
work together.
Yeah, but you gotta
Ben came with
understand.
some nice plays, man.
Yeah.
He was bringing it, if you ask me.
Yeah, but
I mean,
but if you got
I was
but
like,
if you didn't have the
ooh.
talent, you can't do those plays.
No, you can't do the plays.
Right. See, they didn't make one mistake on those trick plays. That's the thing that I watched all year long. All those, they didn't drop it. You got to have the players to execute this stuff.
So this season, what do you think the Lions are going to do as far as say wins and losses?
12 at the best, maybe.
I'm not
13.
no golf guy. You know,
You've said that a couple of times, but
it drives me nuts, man. I'm a
Me neither.
escapability quarterback guy. When you don't have that guy, man, it just puts so much pressure on the offensive line.
I'm gonna take him out in the parking lot. 'Cause you just said you're an escapability guy, but you want Sanders, or you said can't escape.
Okay, well, first of all, when you say escapability, there's different levels of it.
Yeah.
Now, Tom Brady, you can say what you want. He was the most escapable quarterback ever.
Yeah.
And he only used 4 feet.
Because he,
he slide
but
up.
you know what he could do?
slide
You know what he
over,
could do, Leon?
Lean this
Leland,
way.
you know what he was doing when he was escaping? He still had his.
Well, he's always looking downfield.
Golf can't do that. He drops
No,
that
golf
head.
don't.
He
But
can't.
Sanders seemed to have that, man, because he was
does.
under
He does.
pressure.
He does have that.
In Colorado, for him to even throw for 4,000 yards with that
does have
horrible
that.
line.
He does have
Even Deion had to admit his first year that line was horrible.
That was the worst
Because
line.
he was
in-
able to get some
He's
skill
lucky he
guys
survived
in there.
that. He's lucky he survived
he
that
is
season.
lucky he survived that season. And then the next year, he got a couple little better players.
That one, I think the Lions will win 12. I don't care what Chicago does. I hope we beat every team in the North like we did last year. I don't care. Aaron Glenn, I want to see him be
I
successful.
don't know about golf, though. It just drives me nuts, man. The biggest game of the year, I can't forgive him for that. He can't throw 4 interceptions and
But he
fumble.
did. But he did that
on
in a
the
couple
goal
other
line.
games too. He
That's
did
my
that in
whole
Houston.
point. So it's part of him.
Yeah, it is.
He does that now.
It is.
yeah, and
He
that's
don't
the
have
thing.
no 1 interception game. He go 5.
Yeah.
You don't know when he gonna blink on you.
Nope.
You know?
Well, and that's the
Against
thing.
Washington, come on, Washington wasn't even ready yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have
Well,
lost to them.
Gentlemen, we have to come
I'm
to
sorry,
a close.
Washington loss hurts.
We got to come to a close on this. We definitely have to do this again. Leland Stein, the expert.
The
genius. The genius.
The season.
The genius.
Okay, we'll half a dozen genius, half a dozen the expert. The unanimous when it comes to the OG. So I don't think it's a split between OG and anything else.
No, that's just who I am. That's what the young people say I am. The young people gave me that.
But again, want to thank you both for making this show a very, very informative and entertaining
Thanks for having
2
us.
hours. So appreciate you both. You've been watching Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we look forward to having you back with us again next Friday, same time, same station. Have a great rest of this afternoon.